Welcome to this Enterprise Admin tutorial with AppsEvents and Acer. I'm Shari Love, and today we're going to get creative with AppScript and Google Classroom and admin APIs. There's never been a time when you wanted to get more information about your active Google Classroom as an admin console. The reports in the console show activity, posts, but if you really want to know what's going on under the hood, you really need to see the data that contributes to these reports. With Google AppScript, we can write some code that will list all our Google Classrooms active in the last 7 days or any other number of days that we want to use. As well as listing the classroom details, the name, the join code, we can also list the owner of the classroom, their email address, and where they sit in our organizational structure. This information is really useful to know who has active classrooms in your organization. So let's get started. So AppScript files are stored in your Google Drive. You can create a new one by going to New, More, and AppScript. So let's go in there. So I'm going to go to my Drive, New, More, AppScript. And that's going to load up the editor for AppScript. And in here, we can write our code, we can debug it, we can schedule it, a whole range of different things that we can do. We're going to need specific access to APIs for this particular project. So let's add those APIs now. So APIs, you find them under the services. So I'm just going to click on the plus to add a service. And we're going to need access, obviously, to Google Classroom. So let's look down here for the Classroom API. Here it is. So Google Classroom, and I'm just going to add that. So as well as Google Classroom, we're going to need a couple of others. Our results are going to be stored in a spreadsheet in Google Drive. So we're going to need the Drive API, but also we're going to look up the owner of the classroom through the admin directory. So we're going to need the admin directory as well and the Google Drive API. So let's add those two now. So let's go for Google Drive. So we just need the Drive API and add that. And then we also need the admin one. There we go. And there's the admin one showing there for us. So that's all the APIs that we need, access that we need added. When we run our script for the first time, we'll have to authorize them, but right now we'll go on and maybe get started. So AppScript runs functions. AppScript's pretty much like JavaScript, relatively straightforward to do. What our script is going to do is it's going to set up some date parameters. It's then going to grab all of the Google Classrooms from our domain. It's going to get those in batches because sometimes you've got lots and lots of data there, more than you can retrieve in one go. So we're going to grab our Google Classrooms in batches of 500 at a time. And we're going to loop around repeating, getting those Google Classrooms. And then for each Google Classroom, we're going to go and get the information about who the owner is for that classroom and add all that information to an array, and then that array structure, we're then going to store that in a spreadsheet once we've got everything in there. So that's the plan. So let's get started with writing the code for that. So we've got the default name here for the function. Let's go call it listClasses instead. So what I want to do now is I want to set up, let's get today's date. So I'm just going to write a comment. So we'll write a comment and we'll go and get the date. So we'll start making that a variable now, and we'll say that's a new date. And you finish every line of AppScript with your semicolon, just the same way you do it with JavaScript. We want to go back a certain number of days, so let's choose the number of days to go back. So we're going to get a number of days for active classrooms. So let's say days range equals, let's go back 7 days. So we'll just say 7 days. And then we need to work out what the date was 1 week ago, or what the date was 7 days ago. So let's go with date number of days back. So let's get that date. So let's go call it previous date. And let's say that's a new date. And it's going to be now. And then we're going to take now and then remove 7 days. Now, if we want to work out 7 days, we've got to do some calculations. So we've got to turn our number of days into seconds, milliseconds. So let's go back. So it's going to be days range. We're going to multiply it by 24, multiply that by 60, multiply that by 60 again. So now that this is now minutes, and then to get milliseconds, multiply it by 1,000. So that's going to give us the previous date. And then finally, we take that date information, which is now sitting there as numbers, you turn that into the standard strings for recognizing dates. So we're going to convert that. So we're going to make the so we're going to add in to the script just how we change those dates into readable dates for just so when they go to the spreadsheet you can be able to read them. So we'll just take the we'll say the start time, and let's just make this the previous date, and then we'll use this to ISO string option, which makes that readable, and then we'll do the same with the end time, which is going to be now. There we go. So that's our dates. So let's talk about the actual data and using the API. So we're going to use the API, and to do that, we're going to set up some variables. So we're going to set up some variables for the API call to Classroom. And so what we're going to do is, variables for the API to Classroom and for writing to the spreadsheet. So in here, we're going to grab our classrooms at 500 at a time. So we'll just make a page size variable for that. And we'll just say that's going to be 500. So get 500 at a time. You can go bigger, but that'll take more time. And there's so you're probably best to stick kind of 500 is a good value just for managing the kind of throughput of your script. We're going to have this array rows that's going to store all the data as we read it. Call that rows. When we get a page of data, we get back a pointer to the next 500 records that we're going to retrieve from the classroom. So we need a kind of what's called a token that we get back for that. So we're going to get a next page token. And right now that's going to be empty. And we're going to have an array that's going to store the details of all the owners that we read in a batch of owners. And the reason we're going to do this is it takes a bit of time to keep going through and making API call after API call after API call. So if we're reading the users from the admin directory, why don't we take all the ones that we've read and store them somewhere so that they're faster to read if we've read them already, and we only have to make an API call if we're getting people that we haven't seen before. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to store the users as we get them, because often teachers will have more than one classroom, users will have more than one classroom set up. So it's handy just to have all the people who've got classrooms already stored so we can quickly reference them. So we're going to have a thing called owner array that's going to store all the people who are currently owners of classrooms. And once we've done that, that's just kind of set up to go and start getting the classroom details. So we're going to use a comment here, and I'm going to just say that we're going to loop around while we have Google Classrooms to get. And then we're going to use a do structure. And we're going to do this and repeat doing this while we've got next page token. So that just means while we've got pages to read, we're going to grab them. It's what we're going to do. So that's basically it. So we're going to start filling in the details in between here now. Classrooms to get. Okay. So in terms of what we're going to do, the first thing here is setting up the data structure for the API call to Classroom. So that's going to we're going to say optional args equals, and then we're going to put in the API information. Now, where I'm getting this from is from the API reference here. So what we're doing is we're doing a course listing, and this is the kind of where you get all the documentation around the API calls. And we're just going to list up, and this is what the information that we're going to get back. So we're just going to run this particular call. So let's go in here. And what we're going to have is we've got our page size, which is the page size value that we set above. So we've got that. And then we've got our page token, which is where we're starting. Now remember that it's empty at the moment because we're starting at the beginning. So that's our next page token as it is. And then we're going to list the fields that we're going to retrieve. Now this is the information we're going to get from the API. So we're going to go next page token. We're going to need, for the courses, we're going to need certain information. We're going to get the ID, we're going to get the name, ID, name, the owner ID, which is going to be a link to the actual user that owns the classroom. The course state, because remember, courses, if you don't know already, can have a variety of states. They can be active, inactive, provisional, and so on. So we're going to get the state of the course. We'll get the creation time, which is handy to have. Update time is the one that we're really interested in because that's going to show when that classroom was last updated. It tells you whether it's active or not. Section is one of the fields when you name the course. That's one of the fields we've got. And then we've got enrollment code. So every Google Classroom has an enrollment code that lets you join it. So we're going to get the enrollment code. And that is what we're going to grab, and that's what we're going to get. So that's good. That's setting it up. And now what we're going to do is run the actual so I'll write a comment. This is what's going to happen. We're going to run and get the results for this API call. So in here, I'm just going to say a new value variable. I'm going to call it CLS, and I'm going to say classroom.courses.list. You see how the AppScript is let me complete this, auto-complete it as I go, And then I'm going to do my optional arguments. Optional args. So that's going to go and that's going to give us the carry out the API call. And now what I'm going to do is with this, now that I've got that there, I'm going to store the next page token. So this is, we're going to go back in and grab the next lot of classroom data. So we need to know where we're going to start from in our listing of classrooms. So next page token equals CLS next page token. You'll see that that's auto completing the 2 bits of information that I got from here, which was the next page token, and then I've got the array information from courses. Cool. So that's me getting the next page token. And then what we're going to do is we're going to loop around all the results that we've retrieved. So that means we've got to start, we've got 500, let's say we've got 500 classrooms. So we're going to loop around and look at each one of those classrooms in turn. So for this, I'm going to just go start a new loop. So that should be I. So what we've got here is a loop that starts with a value I, which is 0. We've got the length of all the data that we've taken out. So it tells us how big that array of data that we got from the courses is. So we know what size it is. And then we're going to loop round while I is less than the length of that data that we've got. And I is going to go up in increments of 1 every time. So we loop round, go up by 1, look at the next class, go up by 1, next class, and so on. So that's what we're going to do. So this is our loop. And inside this loop, we are going to read the information that we've got. So let's read, first of all, read the course state. So remember, we've got our courses are in here. We've got an array of courses, and then we've got a number of values here, of which course state is 1. There it is. So we're moving through it, and this is going to get the course state. I like adding these comments just so that we know what each line does. And then I'm only really interested in the active courses. So we're going to say if the course state equals active, then if it's active, then we're going to do something with it. If it's not active, we're not interested in it. So if it's active, then we're going to go and get all the variables that we've got for the course. So we've got the course name. So I'm going to have a new variable, course name equals courses I, and that's our course name. And then we want the course creation, which is going to be the creation time. Creation time. And after creation time, let's get the update time. the update time. And as well as the update time, let's get the course section. Now, course section is kind of tricky because not everybody writes in course section. So it gets set with a null value. Now, null is not particularly user-friendly when you're displaying stuff in a spreadsheet. Saying null isn't going to help us really. So it's probably better it's just blank. So what we can do is we can say if the course section is null, right? So if that's what we get, if that's the value that we get, I'll just put the brackets around this because I need to put brackets around conditions. If that is null, then what we're going to do is we're going to just change it to course section equals, and we'll just make it empty quotes, and that just means it'll be empty. Oh, there we go, empty quotes. We'll keep getting the information that we need. So var the course code. Now this is the joining code. I'll call it course code, a new variable, and this is going to be cls.courses, just the same thing, reading through our array. And this is the enrollment code we're getting now. And then the last one is course ID. Ooh, it's not, it's ID. There we go. So, that's us pretty much. Got our information. The only thing we don't have yet is the owner ID. So let's have var owner ID. And that's going to be just as we do it before. Courses owner ID. So basically going through there and reading all the values that we've got. Now, owners are going to be a bit tricky because, as I mentioned earlier, we want to store the owners in another array and quickly look up owners to stop us making lots and lots and lots of API calls. So to do that, what we're going to do is we'll just say we're going to set up an array. So we'll say var lookup. Oh, need to delete this not as a comment. Var lookup equals owner array dot filter. So we're going to filter the owner array. We'll do this with a function vi, and then we'll just quickly program this in and say return v0 owner ID. So that'll do a quick lookup for us. Or set up the lookup, store the information for us. So that's got that little function, and now we're going to we'll set up some empty variables just in case, just to preempt this. So we'll do var owner equals empty quotes. So stop it throwing errors later if we've got no data in here. OU, we're going to get the organizational unit path for this user, but we'll just, again, just so it doesn't throw any errors. Like if someone's deleted a user account, but the user's still got a classroom, this will cope with that. It'll be robust enough and it won't crash or fall over if that's not there. So let's see if we've got a hit in our lookup. So we'll do a lookup for the owner. So we'll say owner equals lookup, and this is looking up for the owner ID in our array. So in our array, we've got the owner ID is in column 0. The owner is in column, I think about it, might be in column 1. Then we've got the OUs in column 2, and the primary email address for that user is in column 3. So you think there's 4 bits of data that's in this owner array that we're using. Okay, so now, and then if that fails, then we've got a wee thing to try to do, which is going to be an API call to the admin directory to go and find the user's details. So fails in the lookup in the array where we've temporarily put user data, then it's going to fail there, and then we do the admin lookup as a kind of fallback. So we're going to fall over, let this fail gracefully. So we'll just do a little say to try to do this. And this is we're going to do an API call to find the account information for this user. So for that, we're going to do a owner object, which we're going to set up, and that's going to be, this is us doing our admin directory call. So we're going to admin, we're doing users. I'm going to get a user. And we're going to get the user with the owner ID, because the owner ID is the unique identifier for that user's account. And that's what links them to Classroom and links them to the admin console where they're stored. Okay, and then we're going to say the owner for our Classroom is going to be this owner object name, and we'll just use full name, make life a little easier. And we'll also get their OU, which is going to be their org path. So it's going to be same thing, owner object dot org unit path. It's a path to where that user is. And then we've got a primary email, and the primary email again, it's the same deal. We're just going to go on owner, and it's just the primary email. Cool. Now, because we've read these, the first time we come through here, this is all going to fail. And in terms of looking up the array that we had, and now we then do the API call. So once we've read who these people are, each time we read a person, we've got to write them to an array. So we're going to write them into an array. I'm going to push this data into our owner array. So I'm just going to go owner array dot push, and what I'm going to do is push in the data that we want. So I want to push in an array of this information. So we've got owner ID. Remember I said the columns that we had. Owner ID, owner, OU, primary email. Not previous date, Charlie. Primary email. Cool. So that's going to push that into an array for quick reference. And then because we're using this try part, we're going to catch errors when our API call fails, like if someone's just not there, right? So it's like the user's been deleted. So that could be the reason why we get an error. So we're going to say catch based on errors. I'm going to say like, and then we'll just put in what's going to happen there. So owner might be deleted. So if the owner is deleted, then we still want to write something nice into our spreadsheet. So we're going to say the OU is going to be none because they're not there. Again, we want to make it readable. The owner, let's make the owner ID plus whatever the error message is. So we'll do a little bit of concatenation, and we'll put in a message. So that should, yeah, that looks right. So to show the owner will be set the owner ID plus whatever the error message is going to be. We'll say primary email is not set because we don't know who it is. Cool. And we'll also push that into the owner array with that owner ID so that if it happens again, we'll just know that that person isn't set, that owner ID doesn't exist. So we'll put that in if it fails. And that means we won't be reading from that owner. Cool. All right, so that's us now reading the information that we've got and looping around, adding that. So that's pretty good. And the next thing would be, obviously, once we've read the information, we've got a little bit of work to do around, so what do we do now? We're looping around, we keep looping around while we're looking at this. So let's just check this is going to be right with our matching. So our do loop needs to link with our while, that's fine. This one, I've got that's the do loop. That's fine. And then just checking these all line up. I might have an extra one here actually. That's what I think I've got. Yeah. It'll soon tell me if I don't. Okay, so that's quite a lot in that 30 minutes there. We're going to jump onto the second video now, so you can watch that as the next one in the channel. What we've done so far is we've got all the information. We're ready to start writing into a spreadsheet. So write to the rows and write to a spreadsheet, which is really cool. We'll be doing that in the next video. So that'll be in part 2. So great. Thanks for watching this first part with AppsEvents and Acer. And I'm Charlie Love, and I'll see you in the next part in a couple of minutes' time.